evening. Welcome to Standing Up to Racial Justice in the Arts, the culminating event in Hands Up Atlanta, our Art and Activism series. My name is Susan Booth. I'm the Artistic Director of the Alliance Theater. For our program tonight, we're joined by the leaders of a collection of incredibly powerful racial justice organizations that predated our current moment and that sprang up in response to our current moment. And so I'm really honored that joining us tonight is the leadership of BLACT, Black Leaders Advocating Cultural Theater, CREAT, the Coalition for Racial Equity in Atlanta Theater, IDEA ATL, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity in the Arts, ATL, Out of Hand Theater, and Atlanta Theater Artists for Justice. These conversations that we've been having for the past several weeks are inspired by and catalyzed by the Alliance's upcoming production of Hands Up, 7 playwrights, 7 testaments. And I want to tell you a quick little origin story about Hands Up and the Alliance's connection with Hands Up. Hands Up was originally written in 2015 in response to the murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. This is a piece that brought together a collection of writers to write from multiple vantage points about violence on Black bodies. The Alliance was introduced to this work as part of the application process of the Riser Atlanta Artist Lab. In this year's competition for the Artist Lab, a remarkable cohort of Spelman students, alums, and faculty brought forward a proposal to take Hands Up and create a dynamic work of arts activism. It was selected by a national panel of judges as one of our Riser Lab winners. And then George Floyd was murdered. And then, sadly, a list of people were murdered. And the Alliance made a decision that we needed this piece to come to a larger stage and needed it to be in front of as many people as possible. And so it is part of our season, our 2021 season. We'll be producing the work in January. And now we are in the middle of a series of conversations catalyzed by the work. I want to talk a little bit about the racial justice work that the Alliance is doing. Many of you know, because many of you participated in them. We spent the summer in a series of listening circles where my leadership colleague, Mike Schleifer, and I sat and listened to small groups of Atlanta artists and educators and arts practitioners talk about what their experience was with the Atlanta art scene, with the Alliance Theater. We wanted to be responsive, but first we wanted to hear where we were most needed and where we were most lacking in our racial equity work. So a few of the things that have happened as a direct response to those listening sessions. We have created a required allyship anti-bias training that every member of the Alliance staff participates in each year, that our entire board of directors participates in as part of their work with us. We've created a bespoke version of that training that is part of every first rehearsal day for every project that happens at the Alliance. We have made the decision that we will no longer have uncompensated interns working for the theater. If you are interning with the theater, you are compensated for your work. We have added land acknowledgements, not only the land acknowledgement of the indigenous people whose lands were stolen for our possession, but also acknowledging the slave labor that built the lands upon which the Alliance Theater sits. And that acknowledgement is part of our rehearsal process, part of our performance process. We have created a BIPOC stage management fellowship. We heard loud and clear that there were not enough people of color sitting on the other side of the table. And that fellowship process goes live as of next season. We've shifted our employment practices so that we have a representative from our EDI task force as part of the solicitation process and the decision process for every open position at the Alliance Theater. And we have created a commitment to our EDI metrics of our audience, our artists, our staff, our leadership, and our board being made visible to the community, and that our goals around increasing those percentages also made visible to the community so that we have an active accountability. You will see in the upcoming weeks a statement on our website enumerating these and other changes that we've made at the Alliance. You will also hear right after the first of the year about the Alliance's new strategic plan, which has a commitment to a robust expansion of our EDI efforts as a major pillar of our strategic plan for the next 5 years. So the next thing I want to do is introduce the premiere of a short film. This was inspired by one of the monologues in Hands Up. It is a monologue entitled Walking with Michael Brown. And here it is.
Now, if Charlie Rose were to ask me to speak on the subject of race and America, which would never happen, but I do like to fantasize about wearing a tweed jacket on PBS, I'd have to admit the truth, that I've never had to use those magic words because no one's ever called the cops on me. Not even once. Chuck smiles, and that encourages me to continue, so I continue. But what if I grew up in Ferguson, Chuck? Maybe I would have run out of time because, officer, there must have been a miscommunication. Takes about 4 seconds to say, and Michael Brown was shot 6 times. Officer, bang, there must have, bang, been a, bang, miscommuna, bang, cation, bang, bang. That's 6 shots in 4 seconds. Now compare that to the following phrases. Each of them, by itself, takes less than 2. What the fuck, man? I'm just going home. I'm unarmed. I ain't do shit. I'm unarmed. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. Don't shoot.
Great. Now do it just like that when we're rolling.
So now it is my profound pleasure to introduce the moderator for this evening. Maya Lawrence was the inaugural Spelman Leadership Fellow for the Alliance Theater. She is now our director of the allyship program at the Alliance, and she is someone I am deeply honored to call colleague. It's all yours, Maya.
Thank you, Susan. And hello, everyone. I am Maya Lawrence. It's really great to be here with you right now. And what I miss about theater is experiencing art in the same space as other people. So I would really love if in this moment you can write in the chat your responses to that art that we just saw. Anything that's resonating with you, anything that's sticking out with you. And in that moment, I'm going to take a breath and give you a chance to react in the chat. Anything, it could be a word, an image, or seconds. Time, pain, moment, heart pounding, haunting fear. Past miscommunication, listening. Split second change. Yeah, I wanna talk about that split second change. I am joined today by groups of people that I respect, that I work with, that I learn from in this activism journey. And I'd like to introduce all of them to you in this context right now. These are not strangers to our community. These are not strangers to this theater. But I want to call to the stage right now, Greg Hunter and Jasmine Thomas from ATAJ.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Jasmine Thomas from Atlanta Theater Artists for Justice.
And I'm Greg Hunter, also from the Atlanta Theater Artists for Justice, or ATAJ.
And I guess we'll get right into it and kind of tell you what we've been working on and how ATAJ came about. So Skylar Burks and Liz Campbell are the co-founders of the organization. And Sky had the idea for creating the group after attending protests for a while and seeing that there was a lack of organization or streamlined information for theater artists specifically that wanted to attend them. So she approached Liz about creating a small Facebook group that's not so small anymore for theater artists who wanted to attend and support the protests. And the group grew to about 1,000 members in only a couple of days. So ATAJ has been super on the front lines for providing support for protests, supplying things like water, snacks, first aid, food, anything to hundreds of Atlantans exercising their right to assemble while offering a check-in system for those on the streets protesting.
And after we felt like some of the protests were starting to die down a little bit in number, we wanted to keep active in the Atlanta theater community specifically. And so one of the main things that we wanted to do was introduce different intensives and workshops to the Atlanta theater community so that we could actually be active in the conversation about what equity and equality means in all levels of theater, being lighting design, makeup design, stage management, all of the different levels and pieces that make up the theater community. We wanted to access that and provide opportunities for artists of color to use their voice to share with the community as a whole what it means to be a person of color in this community and how the community can be more of an inviting place and more of an equal grounds for all artists.
Yeah, so sorry, just one more thing. We're we're also supporting the primary elections and right now are planning a 7 county-wide initiative surrounding Tuesday's election. Go out and vote. We'll drop our website in the chat.
I'll do that now.
Okay, great. Where, if you have anything to give, it'll go towards supplies for the election next week. And or if you have time to volunteer, we're also looking for volunteers to help us out with that voting initiative as well.
Thanks, Jasmine. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to call to the stage Marcus Hopkins-Turner and Brittani Minnieweather from BLACT.
Hello. Hi, Marcus.
Brittany.
Hey, I guess we'll do the same thing. Boy, this is bright. So my name is Marcus Hopkins-Turner, and I work there. That's a lot better. I'm a co-founder with BLACT, Black Leaders Advocated for Cultural Theater. Now, BLACT, the catalyst for BLACT was actually an AJC theater review by Wendell Brock for Actors Express Octoroon, in which he referred to an actress as looking like Aunt Jemima and sounding like she went to Grady High School. And that was back in March 2019. And it was at that moment that me and my co-founders, Brittani Minnieweather and also Tina Fears and a couple of others, got together and decided there needed to be a unifying voice for Black theater artists in the city. And so we decided to fill that need. And so our goal in this past year and a half has been to amplify Black voices in theater, also connect the Black theater artists in the city to the actual Atlanta community, and just create a safe space for Black theater artists in this city. We have done that through a variety of community service projects. We've worked with local YMCAs. We've worked with different theaters. Actually, we have an event coming up with Theatrical Outfit. It's called the Welcome Table, and it's to help during this time of the pandemic, help those who are affected by homelessness and who might be affected by homelessness in the near future. We've done book bag drives. We've done blessing bags for, once again, for Atlanta's population that is affected by homelessness. We've been pretty active when it comes to community service because that's a very large focus of ours. We're excited to be here. And yeah, check us out. I guess we could also drop our website in the chat, blacktl.com. Oh, look at that.
Thank you, Alliance.
Oh my goodness, the power of technology.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, and Marcus forgot one thing. Our response to the awakening this year was we organized, right, the Atlanta Artists Solidarity March alongside, in front of Theatrical Outfit. So thank you all if you attended. That was us up there giving those speeches.
Thanks, Brittany. Thank you, Marcus. Next, I want to bring up to our stage Diany Rodriguez and JL Reed from CREAT.
Good evening. I don't see if Diany's on yet. There she is. Hi, my name is JL Reed. I am a co-founder of CREAT, and our mission is to remove barriers that prevent the full and equitable inclusion of Black, Indigenous, and people of color from all aspects of theater making.
Absolutely. And can you hear me, JL?
I can.
All right, perfect. We started in 2019. We were a couple of us, mostly Cynthia Barker, was working in conjunction with Out of Hand Theater to create, she was working on their series of equitable dinners and Decatur dinners. She mentioned casually to Lee Osorio, the man who, with the plan, that she wanted to do a theater-specific dinner. They recruited a group of people. JL and I were two of those people. We had one of the most successful, I would say, EDI conversations that Atlanta had ever experienced in our theater dinner. And afterwards, we thought, let's keep doing it. So honestly, like on that sort of rainy night when we had that dinner, CREAT was born. And then we started thinking about how we could, include our own voices in theater and in Atlanta theater. And we started working on the thing we called the rating system.
Yes, and so the rating system is a way to hold theaters accountable in this community, and it is a multi-pronged approach. We look at things like programming, staffing or hiring practices, what policies you have in place to address anti-racist issues. And there are a number of things. This is Lee Osorio's part of his brain project. So I know he's operating in a different capacity this evening, but he's been responsible for a lot of the math of that work. And we've all been providing some really great input to help launch this. We've had some theaters who have been kind enough to provide us with data to start helping make this make sense. And we hope to launch later this year, if not the beginning of next year, across the theater community and ultimately make it national.
And speaking of things that we have launched, We have a couple of initiatives, including the rating system. A lot of theaters and artists in theater participated earlier in the summer in our town hall series that we did in conjunction with IDEA ATL. Those ended up being very successful and have sort of pushed us in a direction we didn't know we were going to go. As always, all of these organizations are sort of living, breathing things. We ended up getting a lot of money thrown our way by people who really liked the town halls. So we decided, hey, why don't we create a grant that makes it easy to be able to do your art, that makes it easy to feed yourself in the way you need to be fed. So we just established the Sow and Grow grants. We are taking applications for those grants right now. And we take a lot of pride in what we feel was our own sort of attempt at dismantling white supremacist structures within the funding systems. It's basically 3 questions. Under 300 words, we specify, please don't tell us too much. Just tell us what you need, tell us why you want it, and ensure that you are an Atlanta native or Atlanta artist. And we will put your name in a hat and literally pick it out. So everyone is on the same base. It was very important to us that 70% of those grants, so they're BIPOC artist grants, but it was important to us to honor the time and place in which we are living. 70% of those grants are going to go specifically to Black artists. And we have a donation link. Oh, perfect. It's there in the chat. I think we did it all right, JL.
I think we did well. Yeah.
I agree. Thanks, Diany. Thanks, JL. Next to the stage, I want to call up Amber Bradshaw and Michelle Pokopac from IDEA ATL.
Hi, I'm Michelle Pokopac, representing one of the members from IDEA ATL, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity in the Arts of Atlanta.
And I'm Amber Bradshaw, happy to be here. So I guess maybe I'll jump into how we got started and then I'll toss it to you, Michelle. So basically IDEA ATL, our goal is to educate and train the community in all aspects of equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice through workshops, different types of training. And we've moved into a lot of discussion type events, obviously with our work with CREAT. But we got started because Working Title Playwrights brought art equity down to Atlanta in 2018 to do a workshop. Carmen Morgan led that workshop, and there were 35 artists from Atlanta that attended. And from that, we created a collective of theater artists. And the original people that sort of began this committee were myself and Davior Snipes. And then we had Maya join us. And we've had several people join us from there, and it's been lovely. So Michelle, please take it from there.
Yeah, so since joining them, I've been able to be a part of the educational programming that we're trying to develop and help offer as a way for, administrative practices to kind of better focus on the EDI work, as well as our collaboration with the town halls with CREAT and facilitating more in those sort of events. And I hope it's okay. I just want to take a moment too to recognize I'm also representing East by Southeast tonight, which is an organization that is trying to support and develop and create a platform for local Asian artists here in Atlanta. So.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Amber. And now introducing the man with the plan, as was called earlier, Lee Osorio from Out of Hand Theater.
Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you, Alliance Theater, and thank you to all of these amazing people on this call. I feel really honored to be a part of this group, and thank you to all the attendees, all 76 of you. I'm scrolling through these names, and there's some people that I just have a lot of love and respect for. So thank you all for being here tonight. I am representing Out of Hand tonight. Out of Hand Theater works at the intersection of art, social justice, and civic engagement. and we use the tools of theater to support community partners. Our three big buckets of programming are our shows and homes, which we're not doing right now for obvious reasons, our community collaborations, and Creative Kids, which is an education program that we offer for free to public schools in the Metro Atlanta area. I'll talk mostly tonight about our community collaborations, and the biggest one has already been mentioned tonight. That's Decatur Dinners / Equitable Dinners. It started in December of 2018. We had a show in Homes. We had just gone to, well, Ariel had just gone to a dinner that was hosted by Both And Partners, a dinner talking about racial equity. And we invited them to a show. They came to the show and we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could meld these two worlds of art and conversation and really use the art to launch conversation? So we weren't sort of putting the burden in these conversations about racial justice on people of color to sort of spill their guts or start the conversation, and let art do that work. And that night happened to be hosted by a mom in Decatur who was just finding out, you know, as so many of us that are white and white passing find out too late, things that are very obvious to everyone else, about the great disparities in the Decatur school system in terms of disciplining children of color. And so she said, we've got to address this. How do we do this? Can we use these two tools and bring them together to create something? And that something was Decatur Dinners on August 25th, 2019. 1,200 people came out to 70 different locations, 120 different tables to sit down, listen to a 15-minute play performed by 70 different Black actors all across the city of Decatur, and have, I would say, like a 2-hour conversation, but that's not entirely accurate because there were like 3-hour or 4-hour conversations. Some continued following days. So they had a discussion about racial equity and what that meant in a suburb of Atlanta that really prides itself on its progressive views and liberalism. So interrogating white supremacy in a space that sort of had thought itself above that. That event was so impactful to people that we thought, let's continue on Atlanta on a bigger scale. So we were planning 5,000 dinners at 500 tables over the month of September last month. Again, didn't happen, but because of COVID, but what COVID, you know, showed us, again, no big surprise, but that, you know, like so many ills in our society, COVID did not impact communities equitably or equally. And we felt like, yes, this conversation could not happen in the way that we thought it should, but it needed to happen now. And so in April, we launched a series called Equitable Dinners Lift Every Voice. That's a monthly virtual conversation about racial equity, and it's every month is through a different lens. So we've done housing, food, economics, education, voting rights, and the next one, Candy is writing a play. Reverend Dr. Candy Dugas is here tonight, and she'll be writing the November piece, which will be on November 15th. I'll put it in the chat in just a second, but you should definitely register for that. It'll be a conversation about community activism through the lens of racial equity. It's also launched by a play, then we have a guest speaker, and then we go into breakout rooms on Zoom for a facilitated conversation. Just a couple of the other projects that we have going on Out of Hand that are and are not racial equity based, because everything's intersectional. We did a collaboration with the CDC this summer, reducing HIV stigma, specifically in the Black and Latinx populations between 18 and 24 years old, because the rates, if you know, in Atlanta are incredibly high in those populations. 1 in 2 Black men in downtown Atlanta who have sex with men will become HIV positive over the course of their lives unless we make some drastic changes. And those are systemic changes, not just personal changes. 1 in 6 Latinx men, or I think it's 1 in 6 Latinx men as opposed to 1 in 10 white men, maybe 1 in 4. I'm forgetting right now. And then one more project that we're working on right now with the Georgia Council for the Arts, the Attorney General's Office, and the Department of Education is we are piloting a program, or we're writing a program this year that will be piloted next year about sex trafficking awareness. And so if you have middle school or high school students, we're doing a focus group on November 7th. We would love to have you there and have your input. I'll put that link in the chat so you can register to that as well. But yeah, Out of Hand, Equitable Dinners, learn about us, come check it out. We're appreciative. Institute for Equity Activism. Adria would not be happy if I didn't mention that. Also, and one more program that you can get involved in. Our next cohort starts in January. So definitely, definitely check it out. That's a great way to do some intensive studying about how you can, an appreciative approach to racial equity. So great, thank you.
Thanks, Lee. And thank you, everyone. I consider, this my activist tribe, my activist community. And today we're gonna ask a few questions for our Atlanta theater community. And so the excerpt that we just saw from Hands Up is a part of the larger collection of monologues. And Hands Up is a powerful collection of stories. And in this last excerpt, it was a focus on how we connect with the story of a man wondering how the narrative of Mike Brown would have shifted if he were there. And I would love if any of our panelists today would like to share your story and how did your story activate you into action, or a story from someone else that activated you into action, and what was that action? And yes, all my panelists, you can hop back on also.
I can share a quick story from my own personal experiences really quickly. So I have been in Atlanta. I'm Atlanta born, all that stuff. I went to grad school up in the Midwest. And one of my experiences was that I was having a conversation around 2016. It was around the same time as Oscar's So White, that whole situation. And one of my cohort members, it was only 6 of us for 3 years. So you can imagine tension just constantly ran high. 6 people over 3 years is a lot. And this member of my cohort was a straight white man, very like objectively American, like standard of beauty, all of that stuff. He was saying things to me and my other African-American cohort member, like, why do you feel like you do not get the opportunities you feel you deserve? Because you're Black, you obviously get those opportunities. Because you're Black, you get more opportunities than I do as a white person. So you should understand your Black privilege. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. You don't know what you're talking about, basically. And this conversation went on for a long while, and the conversation was cut off abruptly because class was about to start or whatever. And then I got a follow-up email from him that was like, I don't think you understand my point. Let me lay it out for you. Hypothetically speaking, you are in this program because you're talented or whatever, but you have to acknowledge the fact that there were thousands of white people that are far more talented than you that got passed up on the opportunity to join this program because you're Black. So you cannot say that you do not have privilege. And it was in that moment that I thought to myself, wow, this is someone that I thought understood my plight as a human being and as an African-American, even though he does not share in that belief system on a physical place. And so in that moment, I took it upon myself to kind of sort of incite a bit more of an activist approach in my graduate studies. And so I started studying theater for social change and social justice theater and more political theater as a way to kind of sort of self-educate and also create more opportunities for people in my situation in the Midwest to also feel that way. And that kind of sort of got me here.
I'll speak on an experience. Thanks, Greg. I'm just segueing. I also went to a PWI, primarily white institution, right? That's what we call them. And my freshman year, there was a noose hanging outside of my dorm. And we reported it, and I was told it was a foot swing. That same year on my hall, my RA was Jewish, and a swastika was painted. And after the swastika was painted, then we had a town hall to discuss race relations on campus.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Greg, for sharing your story. Brittany, you brought up this PWI and being a part of these PWI institutions. And I'd love to ask the group, as you know, Amber mentioned earlier, I'm a part of IDEA ATL, and I'm also here, you know, on behalf of the Alliance. And Michelle was talking about, you know, she's here, a part of IDEA ATL, but then also part of other organizations and Lee, and, you know, so on and so forth. And so what are some of the tensions and benefits of doing grassroots activism, like these organizations that we formed, while also working within other institutions, and especially PWIs?
I'll take that one, or I'll partially take that one. I think for me, obviously, you know, everyone wants to work, everyone wants to make money. One of the biggest tensions in doing this kind of work in general, as a human who is at the bottom of the power structure, speaking up for yourself, speaking up for others, is inherently tense, right? Because power brokers don't like to be told when they're wrong. And they generally have the power to take it out on you in XYZ ways, right? So you never want to, if you already don't have a whole lot of power, you never want to like tempt fate or, you know, wake a sleeping dragon or any number of fun metaphors, because the dragon can affect your livelihood, right? So it's a very difficult and lovely dance that you get to do every day, you know, when you wake up a person of color, even if you are, like myself, a white passing person of color, you still have real specific tensions. And it's a really fun tightrope to walk, just navigating life and then also navigating the very specific potential to all constantly lose money and networking ability and friends. A thing that I like to talk about anytime I do any of these EDI conversations is one of the lovely things that is tense, but then can be one of the biggest learning experience. Any of these panels, any of these workshops, anything like that, is to really dig into the tension on what it really, really, really means to be an ally, right? A big problem that you have when you're trying to convince people to jump ship from, you know, benefiting from or tacitly condoning white supremacist structures is, what does it really look like to be an ally? What are you really willing to give up? Because it's not easy, it's uncomfortable. It's meant to make you think and make you work and change your daily life, right? So if you, the most tension I generally ever experience in these already uncomfortable conversations is when I have to tell, specifically with theaters, specifically, let's be honest, with Atlanta theaters, you're having these workshops, you're having these panels, and they say to you, we just don't have the money. We just don't have the money to be anti-racist, which when you hear it is pro-Black, pro-BIPOC. We don't have the money. And you have to lovingly say, well, you are paying yourselves. Are you actually an ally? Are you willing to give up your money and shift it so that these power structures become more equitable? No. So then what are you willing to give up? These uncomfortable conversations lose you friends. They lose you networks. They lose your standing in society that you have so lovingly worked to create. We have to start pressing those true allyship buttons. That is tense, that is uncomfortable, that is difficult. And though we shouldn't be the ones leading the conversations, right? It should be the power brokers. It should be the people with the money, with the power, and quite frankly, our white brothers and sisters. But it has become us, and that becomes tense and tenuous and uncomfortable, and that's part of this beautiful thing called life.
Go ahead, go.
Okay.
One, two, three.
Thank you, JL. The tension that I've seen with grassroots versus larger organizations or institutions is this kind of boundary or balance of, do I do this for the business or do I do this for the artistic freedom that I'm allowed to do, and how it represents the demographic or the community that it's in. And so with that comes traction, comes following, right? Because in the business that we're in theater, people are going to attend things that they're interested in, let alone that they identify with. So how do you bring two and two together? And then how do you avoid trying to be, flat out like a sellout, for example, in your selections of shows and so forth. And then the kind of gifts that I found with being able to work in both, and how do you bring that towards the larger institutions that you are working with or are part of. You are that gatekeeper in a sense. You are advocating for those smaller groups that don't have that voice. Therefore, hopefully, starting some sort of trail so that it can continue to flow in that direction and not just stop and be a trending moment.
I wanted to speak to a internal tension that I've experienced recently, and particularly being exacerbated, I think, just from seeing the We See You White American Theater posts. And so for me, there's the aspect of seeing institutions that can have all white leadership, all white people who are in full-time positions. And so there's a part of me as a Black male in this country who goes, okay, so did it take the deaths of all of these Black people for it now to be a wake-up call? And so that's my own kind of tension, because it certainly makes me very angry, makes me very frustrated, and it makes me want to just remove myself from all of those kinds of organizations. But then I think, to Michelle's point about the advocacy piece, I recognize and am grateful for my position within an organization like CREAT, with other people who are very passionate about this work, to say that there are other people who in some ways are depending on these groups, depending on these groups to push the conversation forward, to really seek actual change from these organizations, organizations that we have all, people of color, white people, love to work with, love to work for. And so I think the benefit is just getting back into that space of, it's not, if I was just being selfish about this, then I probably wouldn't do much of anything else besides be upset and be frustrated that it's okay, we had to be in a pandemic and we had to see all these Black lives being killed before an organization said, oh, this is a problem. And so that I cannot exist in that space for too long, because I've got other work that I want to do, that I know I should be doing.
Thank you, JL. So in that line, where have organizations failed in supporting anti-racism from your perspectives as people doing the work? And what could they be doing to support the movement?
Hello. Well, where they failed, I think that's that's a pretty difficult question to ask. How do you even exist as a white organization in a Black city? I feel like the first point where you failed is when you step outside of your office and you walk around the city of Atlanta and you see all of these Black people, and you walk back to your office and there's nothing but white people, and you don't ask yourself a question saying, what is the issue? It's 51% Black. If I can't walk into your office as an artistic leader, as an arts leader in the city of Atlanta, and ask you a simple question about schools in Atlanta, if you can't tell me the names of schools, you fail there. Literally, just by existing the way that you do, you failed. So when you ask, like, where have these organizations, where did the failure start? It started in their existence, right? So being able to operate as a white institution in a Black city, not knowing where Black children go to school, but you're an arts leader in a Black city, not knowing where not knowing things that Black people like to do in a Black city. As an arts leader, you failed. It's just literal general education about the place where you work and the place that you live in. At that point, you have failed as an organization. If you can't find enough people to come to your audience, but you've done your 5th white cast of the season, you failed. How far do we need to look? I mean, honestly, do we need to go in depth as to say, like, you know, what policies did we not put in place? No, it's not. It's really a lot more simple than that. You are a white organization existing in a Black space. I don't have the same experience as Greg or as Brittany. From the time I was born until I graduated college, I was in pretty much an all Black space, right? I grew up in Southwest Atlanta and it was all Black. I hit the professional theater world and I was like, where did all of these white people come from? Where did they come from? Right? Because, you know, the Atlanta I know is a thriving Black community. Black people don't even know half of these theaters exist. How many theaters can honestly say that we said it's a 51% Black city? How many of you can honestly say that at least 25% of your board is Black? At least 25% of your leadership is Black. How many of you can say that? None of you. You failed from inception. That's the point where you failed at. No, there's no need to get in depth. You failed as trying to exist in a Black space as a white organization.
That was a very mic drop moment, Marcus. And so I want to see if anyone else has something that they want to share to this.
Yeah, I'll throw some stuff. Marcus always like really inspires me, so I generally like we have lots of like weekly meetings, and I'm always like, yeah, I have something to say now. But it's also too like we get really caught up, you know, in the you know politeness politics, tone policing each other. Again, I call these alphabet groups in our weekly meeting. I call them the alphabet meetings. But it's really easy to get caught to self-congratulate, right? To have all these theaters and be like, we had our workshop and it was all BIPOC artists. But we're not talking about what you've done right, right? We're talking about the pain that you have consistently sown, how every day you show people of color that they don't matter, that they don't exist in your spaces, and in de facto that they aren't safe in your spaces, right? We can be specific. Like I have no problem being open and honest. I think the more open and less coded you are with your language, the more things tend to hit home, right? Let's look at the amount of theaters in Atlanta that have had months and months and months to come up with action statements, haven't put them out. Let's be even more specific. There was a big public kerfuffle with GET, Georgia Ensemble Theater, right? They promised an action statement as a result of this big, beautiful kerfuffle where a lot of the community got together. They promised an action statement about a month ago now, 3 weeks ago. Still haven't had it, still haven't put it out, right? There's this constant feeling among white-led organizations, specifically in Atlanta, a predominantly Black city, right? Gwinnett County has the largest growing population of Latine voters, not just in Georgia, in the United States. Why are you not producing work that speaks to these untapped markets? Why are you not allowing these unheard voices to be part of your planning processes? Why are you constantly bringing in lovely, wonderful directors and playwrights that weren't bred in your Atlanta systems? You have 3 predominantly Black institutions within a 3-block radius of each other right downtown. Why aren't you finding those actors and actresses and playwrights and bringing them in and welcoming them into your institutions? You fail every time you work to keep yourself comfortable. You fail every time you look around and you are not addressing the larger populations that you say you serve because you're taking this public money. You're taking the money that we pay taxes into. You're taking that money and you're self-reporting all the ways you're patting yourself on the back rather than fully investigating how you are not using this money. If all of your money goes to your education program, if all of your grant money goes to your smaller projects, why aren't we part of the process of these bigger works? You are failing every time you are keeping yourself comfortable. It's not a matter of the things you're doing right, because it's an ongoing process and it's never finished. The minute you stop paying attention, the minute you stop thinking, what can I do better today? What voices can I invite into the conversation? And how can I pay these people for their time and their work and their effort, right? What am I giving up today to make sure that I'm creating equitable spaces in a real and larger sense? Every time you're not doing that, every time you're not considering that, because I'm always so surprised by the things that white people and white passing people feel comfortable saying, right? That I would never want to say, I said something in one of our alphabet soup meetings the other day. I said, we're at the bottom of the totem pole. Immediately got a text from JL. Oh, Diany, that's very problematic. I sat with that. I think of that all the time now. I can't tell you how often white power brokers say things and they think they feel safe enough to say them. It makes me think, oh, you're not doing the constant work that I wake up doing, that I lose sleep over doing. The minute you are constantly comfortable, you have failed. That's it. Because we're not comfortable anytime. And my Black brothers and sisters, anyone with a darker hue of skin than me, imagine what it is like waking up every day not being able to escape that and what that's like. The minute you are keeping yourself comfortable, you have failed.
And I will say really quickly to both of your points, Diany and Marcus, to make a more general statement, the idea of self-celebration about a workshop that you did or this one thing that you did further implies the uniqueness of what it is to be a BIPOC or a Black, non-Black person of color artist in this area. Once you can remove that idea of it being a one-time, a celebratory, let's celebrate this moment and make those moments more universal and more commonplace. That is what I feel we want to work towards. The idea that it's no longer a big deal that this theater is doing this workshop, because we're not talking about trying to rewrite history. We can't change the past. We can only build upon it and evolve as humans moving forward. And so it's not a matter of us calling out these theaters for the things that they did in the past, whether or not they are aware of them. Like, everybody, we know what has happened. You know what you have done as a company, as a marketing director, as a producer, artistic director, all of those things, you are aware. And if you weren't, allow us to make you aware. And then we need to build off of that and figure out how we can blossom the scope of what we see as theater as a representative force for the community.
So I do want to move us to our next question, and Lee and Michelle, feel free to hop in as we move into the next question. And I'm a note taker, y'all, so I hope you're taking notes, and I'm putting in the chat, so you can put in the chat if you want to too. So this last question is, what keys would you like to share with the folks that are in this space with us today that want to transfer their individual power? They may not be a part of an institution or an organization, but want to shift that individual power that they have into collective action. So what are some strategy tips that you have for us?
I'll kind of answer the last question and that question at the same time. You know, I think one of the biggest ways that theaters have failed, and that, you know, all of us have failed, is like, what is our mission? Like, really getting super specific about what is our mission? What are we trying to do with this work? What are we trying to do by seeing this work? What are we trying to do when we give money to a theater? What are we trying to do when we buy a ticket? What experience are we hoping to walk away with? And having a mission that is measurable, you know, sorry, Alliance, I'm going to call you out. I have no idea what your mission means. I don't know how you measure that. I don't. It's pretty words and it's short and I can remember it. It's the only one in town I can remember, but I don't know if that's enough at this point. There are a lot of times where I will go to see a show and I think, well, this could have been at TO, it could have been at Horizon, it could have been at AE, it could have been in the Hertz, it could have been. So how do we get super specific about our mission? And hopefully, to Marcus's point, that involves serving the city and the place in which we live and the people that we live with. And so, tying that into the question that you just asked, Maya, I wonder, what is our mission as artists? I, like Diany mentioned earlier, have so many times in my career felt powerless. And that's kind of why I ended up in the institution that I'm in, is because I was an actor and I went into thousands of dollars of debt, doing 5 or 6 shows a year that I wasn't happy doing. And I said, well, this is crazy. How do I get more power? So I became a national counselor in the union. And I learned that the union doesn't, sorry, equity, and I'm sure the producers on the line will not be sad to hear this, but like the union doesn't care about us, like it doesn't care about people in the regions, and it definitely doesn't care about its actors of color, because they say we can't tell them what to produce, we can't tell them who to cast. There's nothing we can do. They throw up their hands. And that was super frustrating and demoralizing. And so I said, well, maybe I just need to join, the producer side. I don't know if that's the answer either. I'm certainly, I feel like I've been able to make room for other people and continue to make room for other people and make some big changes that, help make big changes along with others out of hand. But I say all that to say, what is your mission? Why are you in this work? It doesn't pay us. It doesn't give us health insurance, certainly not now. And so what is your why? And once you have a good idea of what that is, why you love this work, why you have to do this work, how do you make sure that you're doing the work that fills your soul? And maybe that means producing on your own. Maybe it means joining a group that you are inspired by tonight. Maybe it means reaching out to a company that you like their work and you're going to support them and help them in this transition as they try and do better. But I think it really, for me, is, why are you called to this work? I see a lot of theaters putting out statements and rushing to action, but I think, Angela Farr-Schiller, in one of our debriefs after one of the town halls, I think said it best: we've missed a step. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. It's performative, and it can't be but performative because we have no personal connection to it. Truly, we don't. We don't have a personal investment, skin in the game. And I mean that literally. If you look like me, you don't have skin in the game. How do you get skin in the game? Sit with that, figure that out, and then come back to this work, and then write an action plan, and then do better. And maybe that means you take a timeout. Maybe it's time for you to have a timeout. Take a sabbatical for 5 years and see what happens to your theater when you're gone. We have to get radical in our thinking. But it starts with really getting intentional, specific, measurable with our mission statements.
I think a tool that theaters can use, I definitely agree with what Lee has to say. Also have another, I think, lane that I think could lead to change. So eventually theater will come back. Eventually we will be allowed to gather. So how about these people that want to throw their money at justice reform and this, and throw their money at statements and behind this group? How about you tell that theater, hey, I'm gonna give you $50,000 to help produce this Black show this season. Why not? They sell out. Why is there just one show every season, one Latinx show or one Black show? And why is it, always sell out? Because to Marcus's point, the city is 51% Black. So how about you use your money and tell the theaters that you're going to patronize? Let's be clear. You're gonna go back and you're gonna see the shows. I want to see this on your stage. that's how you could help. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, as for those who are listening, honestly, it's say no to basically Black art colonization. You know, just tell them no. If you're an institution and you're taking Black taxpayer dollars so that you can pay white directors who live in Sandy Springs and, you know, invite white audiences who also live in Sandy Springs to your shows, what, like, for those of you all who are listening, just say no. We're not going to support this anymore. That's literally like, just say no to them. If you are an artist, and I know Diany speaks on this all the time about us having the courage, and I don't know if I'm always as courageous as she is, but us having the courage to actually say no to these institutions in a very literal sense, and you know, not just saying I don't like this, but literally saying no to their existence. If you are an artist, if you are a patron, whoever you might be, if you are a grant writer, if you're a grant writer, definitely say no. How about that? Let's start there. If you write grants for any of these institutions and they can't put a plan out in, you know, what did Diany say? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 3 days? Shouldn't take that long. You know, just tell them no. Like, just tell them no.
Again.
Yeah, and then Michelle this time.
Okay.
I think what happens with a lot of these institutions and organizations is that there's a field of dreams type of mentality. And so it becomes, if we build it, they will come. And I think before getting into that space, or when you enter that space, there's all of these other questions that are missed. For one, what exactly are you building? Who are you building things for? Do you have a way to get to this place that you have built? Is it a bus? Is it a train? What have you? And so I think that then breeds I think we have, sometimes it can feel like we have theater entities, but we do not have a theater community. And so I think when organizations, to a lot of the points that my co-panelists have made, is getting back into that sense of community. How do we really build a community as opposed to just having these separate theater entities that are sometimes in some ways self-serving? And I think in terms of things that people can do is, if there is perhaps brain space about a new initiative, finding out if someone else in the community is already doing that and how you might be able to support them. Because I know one thing that CREAT does, we have all of these great initiatives, and then sometimes we do have to pause and say, okay, is there some other group that's already doing this, and is there a way for us to support them? And I think that type of work really starts to breed more of that sense of community. And then on a more individual level, I think it's all about taking that next step to call out your family members, call out friends for all of those things that you think, okay, that's maybe just a small thing, something in jest, a microaggression, but those things can build up and create a lot of harm in other spaces that you're not even aware of. But your one action to call someone out and say, I want to address this thing that you said or this thing that you did, can serve someone a long way down the line.
I want to share one of the things, as we did like a debrief after one of our town halls, for example, that we kind of understood as these different organizations coming together, that, you know, we're all human, and there is a separation between the individual, the self, and the organization that you work for. And they cannot be kept separate. They have to intertwine and they have to work together. Therefore, the justice work can't just be representative through your organization that you work for. It has to be done through you internally as a person as well. And if you're not doing the work on your own, how can that be fully manifest through the work you're trying to put through your job? To me and to all of us, almost pretty much all of us here, that two and two, they have to go together. And so with this idea of inclusion too, and this building of community, as JL was talking about, I continue to see so much disconnect between the communities and the organizations. And, we're aware that we're there, but we don't actually take the time to talk to each other and, utilize each other's resources and share that. Why are we keeping them to ourselves, or why are we not, putting a spotlight on there? And so there's also this idea, we sell empathy in a way, right? But in order to make that less superficial, challenging the idea of yourself as well, in addition to your work, such as, try to connect with other sorts of content or communities or institutions that you might not identify with also. Don't just subscribe to the ones that you identify with. You're keeping the same bubble and staying in the same kind of echo chamber. Go out within community and see what other diversity is out there. And then how can that also be an effect to your work? I spoke to a friend just yesterday that I wanted to share a quote that she shared with me. And I think there is a little bit of danger in being solution-based, as opposed to treating something like a living, breathing thing like Diany was talking about, and that it's an ever constant work and it's a lifestyle change almost, right? So it's not just you check things off on a list and you're done and you've, become anti-racist. It's solution is reactionary, not revolutionary. Solution is reactionary, not revolutionary. So don't just check off those points, really continue and keep that ball rolling.
Thank you, Michelle. I love that. I love that quote. And it ties in so perfectly. I call her my activist fairy godmother, Toni Cade Bambara. And she says the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. So in your opinion, in your words, one sentence from you all, what is the role of the artist in the revolution?
I think it's absolutely, that's, I think, a very great way to sum that up. I go to the great Nina Simone's quote, the job of the artist, the duty of the artist is to reflect the times. And I think it's no other way to put that for me. I think she says it so succinctly that if you're an artist, there's almost a duty you have to reflect what's happening in the current moment.
I think for me, our job is to light the match.
Kind of to go off what JL said in a previous answer is just accountability as a whole, on and off the stage, in the rehearsal room, backstage, walking down the street. You don't have to just be an artist, because artists are also people too. So just all of those things.
To breathe life into a revolution and to give it some fire.
I'm pretty sure during this quarantine, most people have been watching Netflix, watching shows, reading books. Art is necessary to life. We are at the forefront of everyone's survival. So we are the revolution.
Art is essential and it's meant to provoke. And I believe artists are meant to challenge and give people inspiration and impact them in ways that will change them forever.
The role of the artist is to consistently pursue uncomfortability and pursue the idea of making that the standard.
I think of us as the mirror that we are showing the reflection of the audience that they don't always see.
All right, thank you so much, y'all. The gems, the knowledge, the fire to keep going. And for all of our guests that are here with us today, we are going to shift into a breakout session that is going to take place in another room. And you'll see that popped into the chat. And what I want to say is, if you want to continue this conversation, I'm sorry, y'all. You know, I cut up with these people. These are my people. So I'm laughing at them. So we are going to move into another session where we're going to continue this conversation. And this is going to be a space to share your activation stories, to have a stake in the Alliance's action plan and challenging that and adding to that, and exploring our collective responsibility for making theater what we want it to be in the future, and creating this new reality. So we are going to have that link in the chat. It will be a guided conversation by some of our panelists on with us right now, and some of our facilitators, a part of the Alliance's allyship program. So we will take a brief break for you to stretch. And for those of us that won't join us, thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you take what was given and keep pushing it forward. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the other side.